also to ask a question or raise your little emoji hand. I will kick it off to Wendy to introduce herself, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you all so much. I'm Wendy Crocker-Roberge, and I'm here as a candidate for the next superintendent of the Reading Public Schools. I've had a thrilling day in the district so far. We started the day meeting with students, some unbelievable, so like motivated, articulate, wonderful young people with big plans for their lives. And really they put the Reading's best foot forward. Oh my goodness. So they were so impressive. I learned a lot about their experiences here through some of the conversation we had. We've met with principals, central office leaders, central office staff. We've had the school staff, and now we met with the fire chief. And so now I'm here, and I'm going to say how impressed I am at the level of community engagement that is happening. I can tell through all of the conversations I've had today that this is the town considers this a pivotal position, that there is such a deep investment and level of care for education in general, for the quality of the schools, that we have really been in the district on an upswing in the last few years, that there's a lot of momentum here. And that you have a beloved superintendent that got a fantastic opportunity for his family and is going to go on a really interesting adventure, and that you would not have chosen that for your district, that you would have wanted to continue with the success that you've been experiencing here in the Reading Public Schools. And so my background, and many of you have probably checked out the resumes online already, is that I am a current assistant superintendent in the Lowell Public Schools. My role is wide and encompassing. It essentially is a deputy superintendent. So I really touch just about every department, every lane. And this is a bigger district in its scope, 28 schools, over 14,000 students, hundreds of teachers, thousands of staff in general. And so I was clear with all of the candidate interview groups that Reading is the only district that I applied to as a superintendent. And that's because I am in a district in a position that I really love and enjoy. But I spent a good part of the first 20 years of my life in this town. I have grandparents, great-grandparent that lived both in different spots on West Street. Grew up playing on the playground at the Barrow School on weekends, and when I'd come to visit my grandparents. And there's just a connection for me to this community. And so when I saw this opportunity come up, I thought it would be a really nice fit in the long run for me. And so tonight I'm here to answer questions that you have, because you do have the luxury of determining who is the best fit for the Reading Public Schools. You have some specific goals. There are some important things that your district is about to embark on. We're ending the 5-year strategic plan that had been in place. Collective bargaining is kicking off next year with all of the unions in the fall, and you have a very large capital project in the rebuilding of the Killam Elementary School that is just on the precipice of groundbreaking now. And these are all really exciting things, but important, pivotal things to have some strength and leadership moving forward. So I do welcome your questions tonight as you get to know me a little bit better as a human and as a leader.
Any questions to start us off? I know it's hard to go back and forth between Zoom and the room, so
are there any?
There are no questions yet in chat.
Okay, well then I can start. Okay, so we met briefly already, but so I'm Lori Hayes. I'm candidate for school committee for this April. And I did look at your resume and some of the materials that were online, and it looked as though you and I have several areas that are aligned. High academics, that's always going to be a goal. Another one that struck me from another document, not your resume, but another document was leadership, not only of the teachers, but of students. So it's something that I really care about. So at some point, maybe we could talk about that.
Sure thing.
So a little bit of context before my question. So Reading Public Schools has strong student outcomes, a stable culture, and positive relationships across educators, families, and the community. In a district that is already performing well, how do you determine what not to change? And how would you ensure that improvement efforts build on what's working rather than disrupting?
So this theme, thank you for the question, Lori. This theme came up a lot in the different constituent groups today, and it sort of alludes to what I said in that opening, in that people feel like there is momentum here and that the progress is happening and it's good progress, and that they're really comfortable with the direction that the district has been heading. And so as a leader, I have come into different situations where that has not been the case, where we have needed to engage in turnaround work that required, some urgent and painful sometimes changes that needed to level things up immediately and improve student outcomes immediately. And coming into Reading would be an entirely different approach, right? It's a different situation and it requires a different approach. I consider it an opportunity because what I'm seeing here with this is that there's a runway, right? So we're coming to the end of the strategic plan. I've spoken with the current superintendent who's said, we're toying with ideas of just doing a +1 year or something, a bridge year. And truly, I think that's a great way to go with this district. You will need time and opportunities to engage with the new superintendent and vice versa. Conversely, I'll need time and opportunities to build relationships, to earn people's trust, to get the lay of the land. And we don't have an emergency facing us. We have some good forward progress. So really understanding what is keeping that, that wheel churning and what needs to happen in this next year to ensure that we continue to move, that is something that I have the full confidence that the staff here and in our schools, they're well equipped, and they've already started sharing things with me about what they don't want to see change and what they might like to see change in the long run. But I think that there's an opportunity here to really take potentially the first half of next school year to be boots on the ground in schools, talking to leaders, talking to students, talking to families, holding community forums, places where people can give me anonymous feedback, Google Forms and surveys, and to have conversations, candid conversations. And that would be sort of the groundwork of what would then inform the development of the next strategic plan for the Reading Public Schools, which would be a collaborative process, right? So different constituent groups weighing in, identifying what the priorities are, what we have for unfinished business potentially in the current strategic plan that we want to carry forward, and what new iterative things have risen because the world and education are always continuously changing. And that is really part of what is going to push us as a community to stay very united, because I've heard a lot of talk about alignment and people really building consensus. I've heard lots of feedback about school committee votes being unanimous, because the conversations and the work and the discussions about any differences and thoughts really happen in a collaborative setting in this district, and that is healthy. That's a wonderful model to inherit and to maintain, sustain, and continue to grow. So those are some things that I would see in terms of the approach that I would take, given all of the context of what I'd be walking into here in Reading Public Schools.
Great, thank you.
There's a couple of questions in the chat, kind of going off of that question from Lori. So I'm going to reframe it a little bit. It asks, what are your top 3 priorities? So long-term, I guess, what are your top 3 priorities?
Absolutely. So academic excellence, and that is, there is a sort of a well-defined understanding of what traditional academic excellence is, but there's also an iterative version of that, because again, the world is changing, careers and jobs and things are always changing. So there has been, and I spoke with the student group today to a certain extent about this, there's a demand that our young people have more career-connected learning experiences earlier, not waiting till college or beyond that to get out into internships. I know that there's been a tremendous effort to build out N74 pathways programs here and early college classes, AP classes at the high school. And I think that sustaining a model of academic excellence also challenges us to look at what does that look like in terms of that bridge between school and career, or school and continuing education. And so the students are very interested in they're seniors, so they're all moving along, but the students are very interested in seeing this, the district continue to invest in growing out programming like that so that their strong academic background can marry with some career connected experiences and really plan for work and for life beyond their K-12. Another priority that I consider paramount is that students always have to be available for learning, ready for learning, from the mental, the physical, social emotional standpoint. And our world just is so rapid, and they have so much input now from so many different areas, the internet and social media and peer groups and whatnot. And it starts younger and younger. So they're not sort of shielded and buffered from stressors of the world and pressures to be a certain way or whatnot. And so we want to make sure that our young people are enjoying an education that's couched in good, healthy, physical and social, emotional wellness skills. So we want kids to be resilient. We want them to learn how to manage feelings of anxiety or fear, to not constantly compare themselves to things that are ideals that don't align with their values, their family's values, to keep a well-crafted system of support so that they're always ready and available to do their best learning and be the best version of themselves. And then I think that the schools continue to be a hub and a gathering place for families and community. And so when I spoke to the superintendent earlier today, he was really clear about something that I could pick up online, and that is that the community has a huge investment in its schools, and our families are very, very engaged, and they're engaged in all sorts of different ways. Some may have, some engagement may look like they volunteer in classrooms. Some look like they're sitting on this Zoom right now and they remain civically engaged, or they listen into those school board meetings. Some champion the 501c3 development of a particular parent organization or group. And so I think that having opportunities for families to stay closely connected to the learning experience that their children are having, and that real sense of community should also remain a priority for the next superintendent.
At the end of your first year, how would families feel the impact of your leadership?
So I think that we will focus on some deliverables, and they will carry over from what the district is working on now and what we're agreeing that needs to be moving forward. So they're going to look at a focus on student outcomes. So I think we've done in this district some really hard work about selecting and adopting new curriculum. So we're going to be constantly vetting how students are doing in response to those new tools. Is the elementary and then the middle school reading curricula that was selected and being implemented having the intended results. And I think you'll always hear me focused on student outcomes as the paramount benchmark to anything that we do. And so I think that they're going to see a close attention to data, to having some performance metrics that we want to be moving. Even though we're a district at the 88th percentile, we want to continue striving. And so what we need to understand is where are there still opportunities for certain groups, where are students performing well, not performing well. We'll have that good diagnostic information at the end of the year and be able to use that to really shape a new plan for us moving forward. I think the community will feel like they know their new superintendent, and that they feel like they know where the direction of the school system is heading. And I don't think it'll feel like a wide departure from where you're at now, but maybe opportunities for new and different ideas to come to the table as well. And my hope is that, and my confidence is that they'll feel like we have a really capable leader, and that the teachers are equipped and enabled to do their jobs well. The school leaders are equipped and enabled to do their jobs well. And the people here at central office really work to support schools and keep all of those things moving so that, every school community is the best that it can be.
Let's see in the chat. You may have spoken a little bit about this in the beginning, but why are you looking to change districts and come to Reading?
Great. So yeah, a little bit of this in the beginning was that you know, when the first district I worked in, I stayed there for 12 years. It was the place that I grew up, graduated from, you know, the local public schools, and went right back into a classroom 3 years after I was done high school to teach, to begin that career. When I left my first community to go to Lowell, the Lowell Public Schools, I had been a student at UMass Lowell twice at that point, and really, again, felt a sense of connection to that community. And had an opportunity that was really ideal in leading their arts magnet school that drew me from a place that I had a lot of comfort and safety. And now we're at the same spot here. So I have a position now in Lowell that has a really wide scope. There could be 3 or 4 of me to get out and serve schools well. So I do the very best I can. My phone starts at 5 o'clock in the morning and goes all the way, but 28 schools is always a wide scope. So change happens in Lowell, but it happens slowly. And so the impact over time, it's been 15 years. I had a significant impact in my school where I was a leader for 12 years. And now I've been in this position for 3 years and will continue to level up the schools there. But again, there was something specific about Reading, that connection to the community, that familiarity, maybe a bit of nostalgia, because all of my memories from this community are all warm and positive and happy. And so could I remain in my current district? Certainly. Do I love my current job? Absolutely. But is this an opportunity for me to work at the superintendent level in a place where that role is, in a smaller community, the role of the superintendent is not one of loads and loads and loads of municipal bureaucrats. And in a larger urban district, that's kind of what it is. The schools do end up sort of being othered from a budget and finance standpoint, from all sorts of standpoints. And here in this community, the schools are extremely important to every person that lives in this community, whether you have kids here or not. They drive the property values, they educate our youth and create that self-sustaining pipeline of good citizens moving forward. And so really Reading had a lot of just ideal qualities that I could see myself having a bigger impact in a place where the scope and the volume was far less unwieldy than what I'm working with now.
Great. The questions are rolling in now.
All right, great.
Let's see here. So you're aware that we're running a METCO district.
Yes.
So what does METCO mean to you?
Yep. So I think METCO means to me that first of all, that every student in front of us is a Reading Public School student. So address agnostic, if you will, right? So we have an opportunity here with a long-standing relationship with METCO that my understanding is that has grown a bit in size over the last few years, that brings wonderful flavors of diversity to our school systems, our school system in each individual school, that from a fiscal standpoint is responsible because it allows dollars to follow these students into our district and take seats that in time may not be fully occupied. We're just seeing birth rates go down. We're seeing just there's a bit of a shrinking young population of young people. So it makes a lot of sense from an economic standpoint. And just the idea that the prosperity and the excellence that is part of the Reading Public Schools can positively influence a cohort of young people that would not otherwise have this opportunity. It really is maybe our collective civic responsibility to be good stewards of these educational opportunities. So I think diversity enriches everybody's experience here, diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diversity of language. There's so many different things that fall under that bucket. It's not, a singular definition by any stretch of the imagination, but it also just has a lot of very sensible, practical realities that benefit the Reading Public Schools as well. And again, you may be changing the complete trajectory of some of these young people's lives, and people in this community should feel really good about that.
Let's see, let's go. This is a good question. How do you plan to build strong working relationships with the school board and parent boards?
Terrific. So I think that from everything that I've seen, I think there are school board members on this call now. We have candidates, we have a candidate in the community room here and a current school board member sitting in front of us. And I've already commented on the level of civic engagement and how impressive it is. Where I'm at currently, most of our school board positions, they're uncontested. And that's really disheartening to see, and these are paid positions, to see that there is just not necessarily the same appetite to be involved. And so open and frequent lines of communication. So beyond the regular touch points are all of the one-on-one meetings that happen on a regular basis. You know, every school committee member got to that board for a different reason. Probably a lot of the same reasons, like they want a high quality education system for the town of Reading, but generally there's the personal is political, right? So there's a personal connection, or there's a personal reason driving you to become civically engaged in a representative format. And so I need to learn what those things are that were motivating for these individuals, and what it is that they feel that they are representing in their role on the school committee. On the parent side of it, I think you have some structures so far with like CPAC and you know, the METCO engagement group that have opportunities for parents to come to the table with leaders, with school administration, myself, and talk about the very real challenges, ongoing challenges that come with you know, providing high quality special education, and just in general continuing to advance the work of the Reading Public Schools moving forward. I know that parent and community and civic engagement is going to be very, very important in the coming years as budgets get tighter and as residents and taxpayers of the town are going to ask to do more than perhaps they've ever been asked to do to ensure that all of the wonderful programming and the educational opportunities that are happening right now can be sustained over the long term. And that's going to really require a strong campaign of goodwill, opportunities to make sure that the public can come in if they're not people that have regular touch points into the schools, that we have those forums for people to come in and see what we do here and why it's so wonderful. Ran an awesome Principal for a Day session back in January where I had, you know, leaders of the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club and different community groups in the area, our school board members, city councilors, assistant city managers, et cetera, come in and partner with school leaders to be principal for the day. And that really helps build a lot of goodwill, get that boots on the ground understanding of what education, what that sort of daily routine is, and to just ask really good questions and just open up doors of conversation for what we hope for the future of our school district. So there's lots of ways to do it, some formal, and a lot of it is just grassroots conversations, being available always, and being out and visible in the schools.
Let's see. How do you define an effective special education program in a district?
So I touched on special education just a little bit when I was talking about CPAC. Special education, there are state and national conversations happening around all things special education. The underfunding of it, you know, things like circuit breakers funding, you know, 75% versus what, you know, we're pushing for at 90%. The quality of instructional programming, having the right kinds of programs in district that we can offer, and we can offer well, we can have to make sure we do them well, that allow for opportunities for students who can access inclusion, which should always be, you know, one of the primary goals, to be able to stay with their typical peers and have those great peer models. I think the rising cost is always nebulous and something that we have to continue to work on. We have to ensure that our practices, from everything from child find and identification, the referral processes, are things that respect the expertise of our educators, the wishes, hopes, fears, and dreams of parents and families, and every time it's applicable, the child, and what they see for themselves. I think a great special education program really takes that sort of triangle of special education experts and educational experts in the district, the parents, the families, and the child, and has a nice balance of all of those, those interests that really come together with a good IEP that provides what the child needs. And on the flip side of it, we're always looking for ways to be fiscally responsible, to, I think, coach, train, and support the educators that are doing the work around special education in our district, in order to keep as many students in district as possible, and provide the very best, safe, appropriate, high-quality instruction that we can. Those are all hallmarks of a good special education program in a district. None of that is easy to do well. But we have, from all of it that I've heard, very talented, committed, dedicated leaders and educators, and a very active and involved CPAC here that help keep that homeostasis between those groups.
Can you describe a major initiative you led and its impact for students or staff?
Yes. So I feel as though I've maybe talked a little too much about strategic planning, but that was, it's all encompassing, because it really, when done well, it's not a thing that sits on a shelf. It lives as the North Star of the district. And so I was the project manager last year for the development, and continue to be, of Lowell 2030, which is the 5-year strategic plan that just began this year. And I think that initiative was something that, we had inherited a 4+1 from the prior superintendent that had been, very outdated with COVID, and carried us through some of those years, like, not well, because nobody predicted how that would all go in schools. But one of the things that I'm really proud of with that particular strategic plan is that we did all of the things that you would do in any one of these processes: surveying parents and students, stakeholder engagement types of activities, community forums, etc. But we did them in multiple languages. We produced our strategic plan ultimately in 2 different versions. One that is very visual, and both versions are translated into multiple high incidence languages in our district. So we took a version that is very, very visual, that is really digestible by, like, the non-educator, sort of our parent group and students. We wanted to have a version that students could read and understand. And then we have a really narrative, kind of traditional version that's also very public facing. But what we do with this, and the thing that I'm so proud of, is that we actually have all of the action steps, deliverables, KPIs, mission measures. It's aligned with our portrait of a graduate, and it is living itself out every day in our school buildings. So we have a software program that helps me track all of our KPIs, tells me when things are due, and we produce that back out to schools very transparently. And so I love the transparency of the plan, the accessibility of the plan, the priorities that we've chosen, rigor and relevance in every classroom, safe and welcoming schools, highly skilled and effective talent, and an operational efficiency initiative. And underneath those encompasses a really wide range of some innovative things and some improving what we have. But the accessibility of that plan and the transparency, I report to the school committee 4 times a year, quarterly, on the entirety of all the year 1 initiatives, and we'll continue that. But also all of my colleagues that are managing each one of those deliverables underneath does a much more in-depth, detailed presentation in their own school committee. So every meeting essentially has baked into it the agenda items, something that gets people, and some of it's not so glamorous, like the operational efficiency stuff is not as thrilling as hearing about us launching 5 Chapter 74 CTE programs at Lowell High School next year. But it's work that I'm really proud of, because it is living, it's engaging with the community, it's accessible, and it really is providing that North Star, and there's a high level of accountability and transparency baked into it.
What challenges do you expect to face coming into this role?
Well, so if I were succeeding a leader that maybe people didn't love, right? Then, you know, you have an opportunity to come in and like be the rescuer, right? No, that's not the tone and tenor of this at all. It's like, oh, he's got this great opportunity, and oh no, and everybody is really feeling, you know, angst about changing the trajectory here. And so, you know, for me, it's understanding that I have some pretty big shoes to fill. And some of what I think people have gravitated toward with the current leader is the accessibility, with his ability to really be a warm and welcoming face and an accessible person, the depth of care and commitment, genuine care and commitment, which means presence at all kinds of school events, often, you know, engaging with the school board, you know, lots and lots of just ongoing communication, and then a really collaborative style. It's big shoes to fill, and I'm taking copious notes, and I've listened to the feedback all day today. I've, you know, watched a number of school board meetings and town forums and things like that that you can access online. And, you know, I think that everyone wants to keep this positive trajectory moving, and I'm aware of what they're looking for. It's been the ideas that I had coming into today were only further reinforced with every single constituent group that I met with, that there's an appetite for somebody really personable, a confident leader, someone who has, that there's a standard across the district, but that there's a flavor and a culture to each school, and they like that bit of autonomy that they can have that defines who they are as a school culture. And that someone who is deeply invested and deeply cares about this district and is going to be focused on outcomes. And I say to it now, our school board, our parents, our staff, we will hold one another accountable for continuing this work. Your job is to hold me accountable. I take that responsibility very seriously. I commit to transparency. I feel very, very much that I led that way as a school leader. I've led that way as a district leader. There isn't anything to hide. We have to collaboratively solve the problems of the education world that we live in here together. But I do have a really strong sense now of why you are so enamored with your current superintendent and what you want that person to be able to do moving forward.
All right, let's see, who's lost my place? Effective progress for all students is very important. What action steps have you taken as a leader to facilitate effective progress for all students? And how will we know that the effective progress for all students is important to you?
Okay, so I have the great fortune in my current role to oversee a small office of some very talented data folks, and I met a very talented data person here in one of my earlier sessions today. But you know, I'll continue to talk about student outcomes because that's what drives all of our work here, is constantly improving those. Everything from, you know, on the academic side of it, there are a whole host of markers. On the holistic side of it too, we want students, again, to be well people, and balanced and healthy. And so I think there needs to be data collected, understood, analyzed in really comprehensive ways that gives you all of that information. So one thing that I'm aware of in the district that happens now, in addition to regular benchmark assessments, is that the students have taken a panorama survey, which is really meant to assess a whole bunch of different things. The panorama survey, you can choose slices of it to give, you can choose the whole thing to give. I'm not sure exactly how much of it was given here, but it asks important questions like, how connected do you feel to adults in the building? Do you have a trusted adult in the school that you feel like you can go to if you're struggling academically, or you know, you need to talk to somebody about a friend problem that you're having or whatnot? And so paying attention to both the academic side of that data and some of that holistic experiential data that we gather, those things combine to really tell us the story of how our kids are doing in the Reading Public Schools. And so you have to have ways to measure it, ways to analyze what you've measured, collect it, analyze it, and then you need to action plan. You've got to do something. In education, and just in kind of the bigger landscape, I think if you talk to teachers, they will tell you that they have more data than they have time to do things with instructionally or otherwise. And so I'm not somebody who just collects it for the sake of collecting it, but it needs to be aligned and purposeful, and it needs to inform what we do moving forward. And so I think having strong data systems and making sure we're collecting all of the right kind of data that we can use then to improve outcomes for students.
What would you do to support and help grow both unified and adaptive programming?
So as a school principal, I worked in a pre-K to 8 building, and I had 4 substantially separate classrooms for students on the autism spectrum. And so it was from preschool all the way to 8th grade. So the coolest thing is that the kids could come in at 3 years old on their first IEP and stay with me all the way until they transitioned to high school. And so I think that what it required when that programming came into my school was everyone in the entire school community learning and understanding autism spectrum disorder and just the vast spectrum that it includes, and being able to respond and adapt our school community to make sure that everyone's needs were going to be met. So when I'm thinking about everything from our phys ed teacher had not previously done an adaptive version of the phys ed class, but we needed to do that. So we wrote a grant and we got some tricycles in, and so that we could work on some of the gross motor stuff. Built a gross motor room, so took a space that had been previously dedicated to something else and built that gross motor room right inside. So lots of sensory wall, lighting, tools, tunnels, a swing from the middle of the classroom, trampolines, all sorts of things where kids could go and use tools to re-regulate so that they could go back into the classroom feeling like they were ready to do their best learning. And so we in the school made a lot of those shifts. I partnered with the Department of Public Works and the Disabilities Commission in Lowell to build a sensory playground out right behind our school, adjacent to the regular playground that had had a play area where you could play store or whatnot, but it had lots of musical, tactile things that really activated all of the senses, springy pads. It had a fenced-in area so that kids could really roam safely and play safely, and we could work on the social skills in real time and do some of that coaching in real time, and in a fully integrated way. So at the same time that everybody else was out at recess, we could have students crossing over. I think there are ways that I'm describing some very organic ways that this work layered itself into our school community and made us a place that was so much better for serving all of our students, whether they were on the spectrum in a substantially separate program or not, or kids with other sensory integration disorders or not. And so on the larger scale, one of the coolest things I'll talk about is being able to go to the unified basketball games this year and see my kiddos from that school who are now in high school playing on the unified basketball team. An amazing experience with Derek White coming out and joining our final championship game. And so continuing to grow the family turnout for that event was just incredible. And they did not know that Derek White was coming. That was a surprise from the Boston Celtics. But I think that there is a larger community out there that really cares deeply about special populations and making sure that there's equitable access to athletics and adaptive life skills opportunities for students. Everybody needs something to put them on their pathway beyond either grade 12 or their 22nd birthday. So I have a lot of experience working with people directly with those kinds of programs, but also working with people whose job in student support and special ed is to build and grow those programs.
We're almost at time, so I will give one more question. I'm not missing anything. This one, let's see. How do you plan to utilize their, You'll inherit incredibly talented leadership staff. How do you plan to utilize their knowledge and experience to be successful?
Absolutely. So when I met with the principal group here and with the central office group, one of the themes that emerged was me not being a huge fan of top-down leadership, that there is an opportunity for collaboration, but there's also an opportunity for bottom-up. And so for an example, in my current district right now, we have a number of different foundational literacy programs happening in different schools. And our kids move around a lot, and we really need to come to consensus on that. But that is a charge that I've worked with schools to come together on. So the principals are aligning, the literacy specialists are aligning, and now we're getting the teachers in forums to be able to align so that they can tell us where they want our district to come together around a coherent foundational literacy program, in addition to we use ARC as well as just like Reading does. And so we've had several pilots. Like I said, we have a number of different things happening, but I trust the expertise of the practitioners on the ground in the schools doing this work every day to best inform us. I love the idea of doing pilots. And so leaders that feel comfortable running a pilot of something and have some willing teachers or a willing grade level to look at things when we're vetting, taking that time to do that responsibly and slowly and being well informed. So much of what happens in the school needs to inform the decisions that we make at central office and not the other way around. And so that was just like one example of kind of how I work. Not everything is 100% a democratic process, right? Sometimes as a superintendent, you just got to decide. We're going to have 3 to 6 inches of snow tomorrow, and we're going to close school. Like that's a decision I'm just going to have to make, right? But for really sort of big, important things, if I'm going to decide that a teacher needs to use a particular tool in their classroom, I better have had that well vetted by some teachers in our district who I trust to give me good feedback on that before we roll that out on a larger scale. So I think those are some important ways to be collaborative, but not only look at a collaborative model, but really a model that comes from the schools and informs up in what might be considered atypical or in a reverse fashion.
Awesome. 6 o'clock on the dot. We appreciate everyone's time tonight and joining the session, both in person and virtually. Wendy, if you have any final remarks, and we'll close it out.
Sure thing. Well, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to spend this highly informative day in the district. Once again, super impressed at the community and civic engagement that I'm seeing here in this district. And thinking that you have, again, the luxury of choice of who is the right fit for the Reading Public Schools. And I know that you have some very, very committed people who are going to make that best choice. And I hope that my time in the district today has shown you who I am and what I believe and how I lead a bit. I know they'll have an opportunity tomorrow night to talk to folks that work with me currently in my district. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity, again, to see a little bit more. And then you have a decision to make. And that's an important decision. It's really what's best for the Reading Public Schools moving forward. And so I wish you the best with the rest of the process. I'm super grateful for being at the table here today. And I just really thank everyone for their engagement.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was good.